everyone, welcome to Rational Wisdom, the podcast that explores rational and practical ways of keeping a peaceful mind and enjoying living. My co-host is Steve Cann.
Hi again.
Hi Steve.
Yeah, hi Julie, good to be back. Part 2.
Yeah, absolutely. This week I wanted to look at meditation and what it is and what it isn't. Basically, I've been meditating now for about 7 years, not non-stop, obviously, but I've been attending a meditation class for about 7 years, and it's really changed my life and given me the tools to realise that my thoughts are not me and my feelings are not me either, and I can step back from them and just not take them so seriously as I used to. When a thought comes into my mind that says, "Oi, you shouldn't be cutting me up in the car," or something like that, I can just let that come up and just let it go. But earlier in the week, I received an email in my inbox from a mantra meditation company, which surprised me quite a lot, because they were inviting me to join a meditation mantra day, which sounds fantastic, and that grabbed my attention. But they gave some bullet points of what the power of a daily mantra meditation would give me, and they said that chanting charges and revitalizes us on a physical cellular level. It's obviously not true. It also says chanting creates changes in our energy bodies, and this bit here was what really struck me as being quite meaningless. It says, we experience enhanced expression, communicating our deepest intentions with simple clarity and power, which doesn't actually mean anything. It's just a lot of nice words put together.
Yeah, so it's almost like they've just made something up to sound meditation-y.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't necessarily want to drag those people down, because they are giving that away for free, apparently, and I'm sure that they believe it and they're very well-meaning. But I wanted to explore what meditation really is. On the other extreme, we have Richard Dawkins, who I really respect and admire, and I've learned a lot about how to articulate my thoughts through reading his books and watching his TV programmes. But a few months ago I was watching him on TV, and he was speaking to a Buddhist monk about meditation, and he dismissed meditation as being an activity which detaches people from reality, which again I would say is definitely not true. So on the one hand you have Richard Dawkins, fantastic geneticist, who probably would argue that meditation chants don't change things on a cellular level, and on the other hand you have these people who are saying that chanting can change your energy body on a cellular level, and I would say I'm very in the middle of this.
Yeah, they can't both be true.
Well, I would say, taking it from a rational point of view, meditation has nothing to do with changing things on a cellular level or detaching from reality. It's nothing to do with religion per se, although many religious people do practice it. But basically, meditation is fanfare. It's concentrating. Meditation is concentrating single-pointedly on one thing, or at least trying to, until your mind wanders. And that's really all meditation is. And people meditate by concentrating on their breath, or on mantras, on mantras such as words like love, or even, Sanskrit words, and like you say, objects in front of them.
Because when you hear meditation, because I've done it as well for a few years, and before I started this I had preconceptions or misconceptions of it being sitting cross-legged on a big cushion, sort of say om for like 6 hours, and having some kind of mystical kind of meaning behind it or something, and it didn't seem to be something that was very attractive to me or have any purpose to me.
And it definitely does have a lot of benefits, absolutely. First of all, it's very peaceful to sit and concentrate on my breathing, and I can just become fascinated with which bits of my body move as I inhale and exhale, which makes me very in awe of this breathing machine that my body is, which just keeps on inhaling, exhaling, and has done since I was born, basically. Keeps me alive, and I don't have to do anything. My body's been breathing without me having to do anything to help it since the day I was born, and it will continue to do so until the day I die. So it's kind of like my own organic life support machine, which is really amazing. And when I sit and meditate, I can just really appreciate that. And not only does sitting like that for 10 minutes make me appreciate what a spectacular product of evolution I am, it's also a wonderful opportunity for me to gain some inner peace. An analogy of the mind, and the mind is obviously just a metaphor for the bits of the brain that we're aware of. So an analogy for the mind is that it's like a deep ocean, and our thoughts, feelings and perceptions can be likened to the choppy waves on the top of the sea, which are changing with the winds, are very uncontrolled. And the deep, warm peace we feel in meditation can be likened to going under the waves and just resting there in the peaceful stillness. And this brief retreat from the hecticness of everyday life is kind of like taking the phone off the hook.
That's a good way of saying it.
Yeah, or soaking in the bath.
I like the ocean thing as well, because you think of, what can be going on top could be a maelstrom.
Yeah.
But underneath it's always calm, isn't it? All the
Yeah,
time.
exactly. And I think that's a good metaphor for how our thoughts are, This is, of course, just a metaphor, and it's not really how things actually work within our brains, because, as we said, the mind is also a metaphor, but you can sort of see the choppiness of our thoughts flitting this way and that, sort of grasping at this thing and then that thing for our attention. But if we can kind of metaphorically go underneath that, then it's very peaceful and very still, and we can get some inner peace. We can just sit and watch our thoughts flow by like fluffy clouds in a blue sky.
That's right. I think people, well, everyone does, including us, you don't always put time aside to be calm, do you? It's as though you've got to fill every part of your day doing something all the time, apart from when you're asleep. Otherwise you're wasting your day or you're wasting your life.
Yeah, exactly. People say to me, I don't have time to meditate, when I ask them if they'd like to come along to the class. But really, I would say meditating enhances your life and gives you that space between the franticness of the things that you have to do, that you need to do.
I think it's very good to do that, isn't it? Just to give yourself the chance to do that, just to sit and breathe. Because when I first went to the meditation class that Julie goes to about 5 years ago, when I walked in, I wasn't sure what to expect. And I think the first 15 minutes we just sat there on a chair, just breathing. And I thought, how long is this going to go on for? This is going on quite a long time, just doing nothing. I could feel my mind wandering off and thinking about things, and like we all do. And I'm not thinking about while I was there, just thinking about what I was going to be doing tomorrow or next week or what happened today. And it was a very good exercise, really, in showing me how my mind can drift so easily when I'm trying to make it not do that. It's almost as though it's your mind just doesn't want to be calm. You have to steer it a little bit, don't you? And meditation helps you to do that, as you say, to concentrate just on one thing, just on your breath or on your body, and to find the stillness that's there.
I think it also demonstrates to me how little awareness I had of my own self, really, because my thoughts and my feelings and my perceptions are really what I identify with as me. But I had no idea what was going on in my mind, really. A thought would come in, and I would have no sort of discernment of whether it was true or false or where it had come from, but I would react to it as if it was true. So it would change my mood. Whereas now I can kind of step back a little bit and watch, as if I'm standing by the banks of a river, and my thoughts and feelings and perceptions are the water, the river flowing, and I'm just standing on the bank. I don't have to keep jumping into the river and becoming part of the river.
And be part of your thoughts. You can let them go.
Yeah.
And not let them sort of drive you, because, that's so true, because all the time you're having thoughts, aren't you? There's a constant kind of mental chatter going on, and I didn't really notice how bad it was until I tried to turn it off doing meditation, and then you think, oh my goodness, am I the only person in the room who's got all this mental chatter going on?
But you can't turn it off because
absolutely.
it's like incessant.
And they tell us in meditation that's not doing it wrong by having these thoughts, but you just have to identify with the thoughts and label them and be aware of them, don't you?
Yeah, or not identify with them.
Yeah, beg your pardon. Yeah, not identify with them.
Just label them and
and be aware of them. There's a thought coming to my head now, or thinking about tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I'll just let it go again.
Yeah.
Like you say, let it pass like the river.
Yeah, exactly. And you really have to practice this, you know. If you do decide to take up meditation, it would be like going to the gym after not doing any exercise for a while. You can't just sit down and expect to be able to clear your mind and float downstream, as it were.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, you have to focus your concentration, and it does. You know, it helps with concentration in your daily life, and it enhances my good feeling. It's scientifically proven, actually, to enhance well-being and to make people happier. But you have to practice it regularly. It's like water, drops of water filling up a bucket. You know, you have to wait for the drip, drip, drip. But you can't.
Very slowly.
Yeah, exactly. Our meditation teacher says it's like turning around an oil tanker.
Yeah.
Because we've been having this incessant chatter and reacting to it since we had a sense of self, which for me is nearly 35 years. 36 years. Giving myself a year younger than. So it's going to take a long time to turn that around, even though I've been practicing for several years already, you know, and it does make a difference. But I think that's why Buddhists like the whole concept of other lives, so they can say, well, I've got more lives, and this doesn't take such a long time, you know.
So it buys you more time then. It's not like your whole life's passing you by.
But finally, I just want to say meditation doesn't just benefit the meditator. Imagine what it would be like if your boss or, you know, the people around you, your partner, had a more peaceful mind. It would make your life easier too. I found that sitting and concentrating on love brings up feelings of love for me. And this feeling of unconditional love is one of the most beautiful things that I can feel. I'm always going on about love. And it's really such a beautiful thing. And I'm not talking about romantic love, I'm just talking about, obviously love is just a word, but that's how I describe this feeling.
It's a positive feeling though, isn't it, for yourself and for those around you?
Yeah.
And for other people, and having compassion for them and caring about them, isn't it?
Yeah.
Appreciating them.
Exactly. And when I feel love...
Judging them.
Exactly, and when I feel love for those around me, I feel very peaceful, as you say, and people around me benefit from that, I would say. Not because of any sort of mystical energy emanating from me, but just because when I feel love, I treat people with more respect and with more kindness, which then gives them a more pleasant experience of me, and they're more likely to repay that in kind. And you know, I really do think that, as they say in the song, what the world needs now is love, sweet love, and you know, when you sit and meditate on the object of love, it does make you feel more loving and more peaceful. So it's really beautiful. So I hope that explains what meditation is and what it isn't. It's just concentrating solely on an object, usually your breath, with the exclusion of everything else, and then when your thoughts and feelings arise, which they will, just letting them go and watching them and trying not to get caught up in them. That's the difficult bit for me. I find that my inner dialogue has its own momentum and I lose my concentration very quickly, and I'm back in turning...
Because it's not a natural state to be in, is it? We're not really brought up to be like that.
No,
like
exactly.
we were saying earlier, you know, you want to fill the space with something.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's very easy to jump back into the river and then lose awareness that I'm even supposed to be meditating.
Yeah.
My meditation teacher will say, and now bring relax your concentration and come back to the room, and I'll be like, oh no, I've just been thinking about all the things I have to do for the last 15 minutes rather than meditating. But that's okay too, you know, you can't do it wrong. You just have to be patient with yourself.
Yeah, not be harsh on yourself and give yourself time. As you say, it's not going to happen straight away. I think also when we go to the class, because there's other people there, it's a shared experience, it feels to me stronger. So I want to try even harder to concentrate. And I think what it's meant to do then is to make your mind a bit more free, isn't it, when you hear the teachings that they put across, so that you're more in the right zone to receive them. I think that's very well described there, Julie. So everyone who's listening who hasn't done any meditation, that's all the instructions you need, isn't it?
Just give it a go. And, you probably will need some guidance, so you can download MP3s on the internet. You can go to a class. There's loads of meditation classes around. Personally, I would go to a secular one, but I have to say the one I go to is a Buddhist class, and they say stuff, that I don't necessarily agree with, but they also say you don't have to agree with this, just take what you find useful, and that's really good advice. I think you're not there to be brainwashed, obviously you're there to get a more peaceful mind.
That's very much their mindset, isn't it, is that they want everyone to be happy, so they're not trying to push out a message or anything dogmatic or anything. It's a very peaceful message, and it's something that's it's a very attractive message, isn't it, as well. It makes you want to go back and hear more, like a top up, as we call it.
And also you can get some brilliant books on meditation from Amazon. Not that I'm not I'm not in the pocket of Amazon, obviously, but you can get Meditation for Dummies, which has a nice CD with it. There's loads of meditations.
There's the 1 minute meditations, aren't there? You can download as well from iTunes. Just a 1 minute meditation.
Yep, exactly.
It doesn't have to be 10 minutes. It just be 1 minute at a time, just to start you off.
Yep. You can always go along to my blog, which is www.youaresunshine.wordpress.com, and find lots of information there about how to keep a peaceful mind too. So there's loads of resources out there, and really it's up to you what you do with your mind. I would recommend get meditating.
Well, thanks, Julie, for all the stuff about meditation there. It's very, very well described, I think. I want to talk about something a little bit different now, because last week, as we all know, Mrs. Thatcher, Baroness Thatcher, died, age 87, and obviously she's been the first woman Prime Minister of this country. She's had a huge impact on our country here in the UK. And what shocked me was, in the aftermath of her death, was the extreme reactions of people, either that they were celebrating her life and saying what a wonderful leader she was and what great things she did for us, or there seemed to be a great deal more people who actually weren't doing that, and they went to the extreme that they're actually celebrating her death. And I was really stunned when I saw this last week on the news and I heard about it, to actually want to celebrate somebody's death. And she's not even been the Prime Minister for nearly a quarter of a century. She's not even controlling anything or doing anything. It's just the fact that she's stopped breathing. That it seems to have got people up in arms, and they want to say how much they hate her. And because I've been doing 5 years of meditation and looking into how to have a peaceful mind, I know how damaging that is. Not just to put it out there and say that, but for you yourself to have those thoughts. It's a very uncomfortable way to live your life, isn't it? To hate somebody that badly, somebody you've never even met.
And just to clarify, Steve, as you say, Margaret Thatcher hasn't done anything for the last 20 odd years, and so it's not like, let's say, some fascist dictator was, overthrown, like Colonel Gaddafi, who obviously was oppressing his people, and then he died and the people were celebrating. It seemed strange, as you say, that all she'd done was die, and then suddenly people were like, oh yeah, let's get on the bandwagon of hating her.
That's right.
Probably a lot of these people are younger than me and didn't even know who she was until she died. And
this is what I got from this, was that it made me think about how we want to blame somebody for all our problems. A bit like people blame their parents. It wasn't for you. You ruined my life. It's almost like Mrs. Thatcher is everyone's mother or something, evil mother who's ruined their life and they've screwed their life up for them, and she's a scapegoat for everything that's wrong. And I must say, I've been critical of Mrs. Thatcher in the past, as it was trendy to be, and I sort of had my own misconceptions of them. And I've got an 18-year-old son who's actually going to be studying politics at Oxford soon, So he's very up on all this, and he was doing some homework the other day, and about Mrs. Thatcher and about politics, and we got into a conversation about it, and I started saying, well, she shut the mines and she put people out of work. And he said, well, how do you know that she did that? Would you like me to show you the evidence of what actually happened? And he showed me that more pits were actually closed by the Labour Party before Mrs. Thatcher came to power than she closed. This isn't meant to be a political discussion, by the way. I don't support any political party. But what I got from that was we need to get some sort of perspective on it. And he went on to say that in the 70s we also had another miners' strike where the 3-day week came in and everything. They wanted more money, and that they were given them more money. And then when the second miners' strike came under Thatcher's reign, they wanted more money then under the leadership of Arthur Scargill. And the old Mr. Scargill, and I thought, well, Mrs. Thatcher, she wouldn't do anything for Mr. Arthur Scargill. You know, she would just walk away and not get to the table with him and speak. But apparently, she did want to do that, and he refused to speak to her. So I didn't know that either. So that's another misconception I had. So I think sometimes we're very, like you say, we're very easy to sort of jump on a bandwagon and make this person into a demon, and say that she's responsible for everything that's gone wrong. And I'm sure everything she did in her power wasn't always positive for the country.
She was quite a right-wing person in her ideologies. You know, she's very homophobic and all that kind of thing. And I suppose she's of her generation. So it's not like you're saying she was a perfect angel.
Absolutely.
But she was a human being.
And I think during her reign, the whole country was sort of whipped up into this kind of capitalist sort of idealism where people wanted to be sort of make a standard of living higher and become more entrepreneurial, and Mrs. Thatcher sort of fueled that a bit. Well, her party and her policies fueled that, didn't they? And I think people were quite happy then to go along with it. But now it seems to be that she's to blame for everything that's gone wrong since. So I thought that was a good exercise, really, in sort of looking at it from standing back and looking at all this, what happened after her death, from a distant standpoint. And I could sort of think, well, perhaps we are very quick to judge people, aren't we? And to blame for things that they haven't even done, and to take responsibility away from ourselves. And then it makes that person wrong, and then we're right, and then we're happy.
But we're the victim of their
That's right.
actions.
So we're giving our power away, even after she's died. People are giving their power away to her because they're blaming her even now for what's happening in their life. And I think it's such a horrible thing, isn't it? It's such to actually hate somebody that much, to want to celebrate somebody dying. And it made me think about the human condition and how we are in the West, especially, that we are like this. It's a blame culture, isn't it? And how that sort of and we compare that with the Eastern philosophy of meditation and how peaceful that is, and how we value people and respect them. Even people in power, presumably. Even when these monks have been in Tibet, isn't it, have been oppressed by the Chinese. They didn't hate the Chinese. They used to sort of try and be compassionate even towards them, people that have hurt them. So I think that's amazing. If we could have done that for Mrs. Thatcher, I think it's a bit late now. But it's just a concept I wanted to throw out there and people to take on board and see what they think.
Well, as we were saying earlier, it feels much nicer to love people, and that doesn't mean that we have to be a doormat and just let people walk all over us. But we can make assertive requests to people without giving in to anger, or without giving them the power of our happiness. We can still make powerful requests without needing to lose our peace of mind. And I think as soon as we lose our peace of mind, we become quite uncontrolled, and that's when you get rioting and things become very polarised. And this is just completely natural and normal for human beings, because we're tribal animals basically, and this is how we've survived. But things have changed so much, I suppose, really since the Industrial Revolution in the last 200 years. The way that we live has changed so much now, and we don't live in those tribes anymore.
Although we have tribes of a kind, don't we?
We have football teams.
Yeah, and political parties.
And political parties.
And a class system, and little divisions, aren't there, within our society?
Yeah, definitely. But we don't we don't need to discriminate against people, do we? And I suppose when we do, that's when the problems come, because we just see them in a very cut and dried manner. We are prejudiced against an entire group, and we label an individual as being a member of that group, and therefore they must be XYZ. Which is why I'm quite careful not to label myself actually as either a vegetarian or a feminist, although I believe in equality and I don't eat meat or fish. I know, I'm very aware that vegetarianism and feminism both are words which have attached to them quite specific meanings in other people's minds.
Exactly, like meditation does.
Exactly, yeah. And so I guess we have to be careful not to do that to other people as well. It's kind of lazy thinking, isn't it, to just see someone go, they look like that.
I think we want to do that, don't we? It makes us feel superior as well. We can label somebody in a sort of less than positive way. It brings us,
makes our group
feel
better.
superior and better. Yeah. I think there's a lot in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the tribal thing, isn't it? When we were competing for food and land with other tribes, I suppose that's what kept us alive. But now there's enough food and money in the world for every single human being on this planet. It's just a lot of it is lying in a bank somewhere.
Yeah, that's right. So I think going back to what you were saying, Mrs. Thatcher could be the ultimate head of a very big tribe, couldn't she? And when we're looking for a scapegoat, we go to the leader of the tribe, and it's their fault. They're in control of their troops, as it were. So she's just a very easy target, isn't she? And a very obvious target that's had so much sort of bad sort of press, hasn't she? Really, from stand-up comedians even, and from newspapers and from critics from the Labour Party and other sort of minorities as well. So all these can sort of come together in a big sort of melting pot, and with her just at the end of it, getting all the abuse. Yeah.
But when we do that to people, we're giving them our happiness to look after, and we're being a victim. And we think, well, it's her fault that this happened. But as you say, there's always a bigger story than that.
That's right. And she was just a human being herself who wanted to be happy like anybody else, and she had a plan, and she wanted to get into politics. Yeah. And it was amazing what she did, really. You know, I saw the Meryl Streep film.
That's not actually her.
Oh no, you're joking. I thought it was a fly on the wall documentary. And there's just one scene that I really loved in that, where you see the feet of all the MPs that she's gone to this big meeting, and you just see one pair of high heels. The camera's down at floor level to sort of symbolise this is the only woman there, and she really was very groundbreaking. And I know she wasn't very big on the feminist issues when she was in power, or did much to help those, but she was a good figurehead. I think she's a good role model for women to see that you could rise to the top with this glass ceiling business.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it was quite a turnaround in the UK because women were starting to do the whole power dressing thing. I'm doing little quote marks around that. And starting to get better jobs, and I suppose, as you said earlier, part of that is striving for financial independence as a woman, because so long women have been, I didn't mean for this to turn into a feminist tribe, but for so long, in the 40s, 50s, 60s, women had totally been reliant on men and had been paid less than men, even though they did the same job. And so I suppose breaking out of that was getting financial independence and being able to take care of themselves, which unfortunately then turns into the whole striving to be like a man and to want to have as much money as you can. And that's not necessarily going to make you happy, but I suppose it's the start of breaking out of the patriarchy. Yeah. I probably should stop talking now before it turns into like...
You can say this for another podcast, this whole area. But yeah, that's very true. So I think I'm going to celebrate Mrs. Thatcher now, even though I've said negative things about her in the past. I think it'd be very mean to celebrate her death, and I don't want to have any part of that. So I did have a conversation with myself last week about this, and I think we should all celebrate her great achievements, and let's just not be a victim, as you say, of all the negative and perhaps the wrong information that's associated with her name and with her reign.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a good idea, and I guess we can look to do that with living people before they die. The people around us who we are constantly blaming. Our boss, for example, for making us unhappy. I'm not saying anything bad about my boss because she's amazing. Disclaimer there, yeah. But yeah, a lot of people do have problems with their boss, don't they? And they blame them for all their problems at work and their colleagues, and maybe we can look for the positive, because it's up to us what we do with our mind, and if we want to be happy, then we need to focus on the things that make us happy, and those things tend to be gratitude and love. And if we want to be unhappy, then we can just continue moaning and dragging other people down.
Which is dead, number one in the charts.
Yeah, exactly.
Which was, when I saw that was the last straw, and it's just gone too far. And so that really sums it up for me. That's how negative it got last week.
Yeah, maybe we should do a campaign to get "All You Need Is Love" in the chart at number one to surpass that or something.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Cool. Okay, well, thanks very much, Steve, for your brilliant input there on your thoughts on Mrs. Thatcher's demise. And I hope that we've inspired you and maybe educated you a little bit with the ramblings of our own brains. And get meditating and enjoy this beautiful weather that we're now starting to have in the UK. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks' time with more rational thinking and a bit more wisdom. So thanks very much, Steve.
Yeah, thank you, Julie. It's been great fun.
Thanks
once again.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.